This is the bonus section podcast, episode number 85. Why aren't you facing the anxiety monster? Are you the type of person that knows you were meant for something greater in this lifetime, and that somewhere inside of you, there's just this bigger version of yourself trying to break through? But in spite of all your self-development, you just can't seem to find the way up there? Well, then, hey, you're definitely in the right place. I'm Danny Griffin, the founder of the bonus section and the host of this podcast, and a person just like you trying to learn how to live the most fulfilling life possible. So to help you take immediate action and get moving in a better direction, we take all the notes from each episode and we post them at freethinkingtools.com. All right, let's get started. Why aren't you facing the anxiety monster? I can't stand the anxiety monster. He's shown up in my life multiple times, especially when I was younger. I remember shortly after I had graduated high school and I was trying to figure out my life. Boy, the anxiety monster just took up a big old spot in my head, and it was a very difficult time. But I wished I knew what I know today, right? I wished back then I knew what I knew today. Not wish, right? If I could go back and say, I know there's education out there somewhere about anxiety. And I wish somebody would just tell me. But back then, I'm old enough to say, yeah, I had to go to Barnes & Noble and start looking through books and reading and educating the hard way. It was like taking a hammer and a chisel and pounding it out on rock. And now I just love my little white space on my Google search bar, and I can do it on my phone, and I could do it on my MacBook, and I can find the answers more quickly, or at least get the pieces of a puzzle much more quickly that I'm trying to put together. But that might be a double-edged sword. We might be online seeing all of this information that actually confuses us more and makes us more anxious. So let me help you sort this out, because I have a lot of experience with myself in overcoming anxiety, and I have an enormous amount of experience with my own kids, an enormous amount of experience with my own clients in my business as a coach. So I deal with this all the time, and I've just done a lot of reading about it. But here's the good news. I always think that the best solution is simple. This is common sense. I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving you medical advice. I think if you're in a really dire spot, you need to see immediately a psychologist, a psychoanalyst if it's a little bit deeper, and a psychiatrist who can prescribe medicine. I always recommend that when you listen to me, if you're in a really bad spot right now, seek medical attention. But after that, nobody's coming for you, so you're going to have to do some work on your own, and hopefully there are more people that, in addition to me, that you're learning from. But I'm going to do my best here today to help you sort through this. Point number one, I realized that anxiety and fear, for me, were just the effects, right? It's a tricky one in English. I was affected, and that was what the affection looked like. So in other words, what you could see, feel, touch, breathe, live with was this anxiety and this fear. And they go hand in hand. I'll call it the anxiety monster, though, because that's the thing that manifests itself. That's the thing you're feeling. When you feel a tingle down your arm, you can't sleep, you can't focus, you especially all the nerve endings. I mean, do some homework, and you want to understand why you have an upset stomach when you feel anxious? There, I think, here I go, going too far out in the biological end of my spectrum, but there are an enormity of nerve endings in your stomach. So think about it. When you eat bad food and you get an upset stomach pretty quickly, because you have all these nerve endings that are reacting. So certainly we have nerve endings everywhere in the body, but the stomach is a big spot. So when you're feeling all this anxiety and you feel it in your stomach, well, then that triggers the natural reaction for the body to think something's bad in your stomach. And now all of a sudden you're throwing up for no reason, and on it goes, and all these things are manifesting themselves. That's what happened to me. Just that. Here I was, a really good athlete. I shouldn't say it. Yeah, I was a great runner in high school at a high level, and I was in tremendous physical condition. And then I went through college and I stayed in really good condition, went back to hockey and had fun playing that, found the gym. But I wasn't really eating well because it was the first time I'd ever been away from my mother's good old cooking. And I was drinking Pepto-Bismol all the time, and something was off. And then shortly thereafter into school, when school ended, now I have all the anxiety of a job. And I met who is now my wife. And oh my gosh, it was like lions and tigers and bears. Oh my, right? From the Wizard of Oz. I was freaking out. There was a lot going on. So I was anxious and I was fearful about the future. But the truth is, it really wasn't that. Because the next point here is, it wasn't the fear itself. It's what's causing it that matters. Now, see, that's the simple thing I couldn't get back then. Because like a lot of people I know, and even a couple of my kids, they're looking at the anxiety monster saying, oh, is he going to live with me forever? And that's what I did back then too. I personified it. Is that going to live with me forever? Is this what I'm going to have to do? Am I going to have to take this pill for the rest of my life, just like a vitamin? And if I have to do it, I'll do it. It all gets sucked up. And every time we talk like that, we think like that, and we don't feel good in our stomach, we start feeding him, and he gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And he's taking up a lot of space in your head. That's what he's doing. So now that I know what I know, and I've calmed way down, I know you don't think so listening to me, right? But I've calmed way down, and I'm more analytical in the approach. I take a beat and I think through this. So the fear and the anxiety itself, if that's an effect, then that means something's causing it. See where I'm coming from, right? So the cause was more important. So just the other day, I was with my son, Marty, and we were going through this because he's got a little bit of an anxiety monster he deals with. And so we started talking about it. I said, okay, let's just break it down. And I did it with Jack too. So I have twin boys after the 3 girls. And I did it with both of them, but I did it more deeply with Marty because I had more time with him in the context we were talking, within which we were talking. So I said to him, look, let's talk about that. What is the thing that you're anxious or fearful about? Well, he kept going to the anxiety monster. He kept talking about the anxiety monster, the anxiety. I said, stop. I get it. He's there. Nobody's denying he's there. We're not trying to say, oh, just get over it. We're not all that BS that people give you. Oh, just get over it, tough it up. It's not so easy, okay? But I think it's easy to get rid of him if you start by saying, what's causing him to even exist? There's something that's causing him. He's able to live off of a cause. That's how he lives. So I said, take a minute. And this took a little bit. I mean, we were going through this, and he was so obsessed with looking at, in his head, looking at the anxiety monster, he couldn't even go and identify the causes that were normal causes for that sort of a reaction, right? They could be easy triggers. One was he plays hockey at a very high level, and he's going to a new school for postgraduate high school year where there's some pretty big expectations that he has for himself. The school probably has for him too. And he's worried about failing. Okay. The other thing is the school he's going to is extremely competitive academically, and he's been on the upswing there. So he's worried about failing. So there were a couple things right off the bat that for anybody would just make sense, wouldn't it? I mean, if you'd never really competed in a new arena, on a new team, at a new level, wouldn't you be a little bit anxious yourself? I mean, if you weren't, you might have to pinch yourself and ask yourself, am I a psychopath, right? Am I a sociopath that I don't have any of these normal feelings? So I said, okay, so now you've identified 2 major things that make a lot of sense. But another little thing that I learned, thanks to my sister, who has worked with special needs children in educational system for, my gosh, 35 years, she turned me on to cognitive distortions. And so mind distortions, right? Thinking distortions. Just think about it that way pretty easily. So let's do this slowly. We have an anxiety monster that we fed, because we didn't know how to get rid of him, so we keep feeding him, keep feeding him, keep feeding him. But now you know to go looking deeper. Okay, shut up, Mr. Anxiety Monster, for a second. I got to go doing a little bit of homework. It won't take me that long. What's really the cause of my triggering you, monster, right? Well, I'm afraid of failing at this. I'm afraid I won't be good at this. Whatever it might be. That's basic. We all have that. It's normal. So when I go down and I look at it, now I say, well, what do I believe about, and I'll take Marty's case. What do we believe about hockey? Well, I believe that I won't be good. Okay, that's a pretty big cognitive distortion. That's all or nothing thinking. Go Google cognitive distortions, and that's exactly, it's exactly what comes up, right? Sorry, during the podcast, I get a phone call. That's pretty good. Okay, so the bottom line is this, is that when you look at that cognitive distortion, right, you say, that's all or nothing thinking. Is it true that after 14 years of playing a sport, that I would all of a sudden get to the point where I just completely fail. I'm just no good. I quit the team. Like, that's crazy train from 0 to 10 with no logic involved. Right? That's just not reality. It actually would make it would be really hard to fail at that level. Think about it. To spend 14 years on a task, constantly improving, loving the game, having a great level of achievement, but to all of a sudden go into a new venue and that somehow you're going to go from what? Being really good to not even on the team because of the anxiety monster? See where I'm coming from? It's just not logical. So you can get rid of that cognitive distortion pretty easily, right? That's what you do. But then the third point is, now that we're into the causes, we're identifying them, and that we know that the accelerant to feed the monster is called a cognitive distortion. You feed him by getting worried and then going to the extreme failed case and feeding him. That's how it works. Okay? Just in a logical, commonsensical way, non-medical. I'm just telling you, that's how it worked for me. That's how I see it working in my clients, my kids, etc. Is that they will see something new, it will trigger anxiety, and they will go through a cognitive distortion tube at lightning speed to go to complete and utter failure. Here's why that's not logical. The third point: if you simply identify, work on, and then later on master that one thing that you have to confront because it's the thing you want to do, or it's where you're going, or what it's going to be, that's the one thing. So in his case, it was hockey. And there was a second thing, academics. And those are two pretty big parts of what will get him to his future. And part of the academics is a subset of a new thing that he's into, and that's drama, becoming an actor, getting involved in film. So there's a lot of new beginnings, even though some of these things are familiar, some are unfamiliar. So what do? You just identify them. Now, I believe that one of the best ways to truly identify something is to pull it out of your head, catch it like a firefly through your arm, through the pen and onto the yellow pad. I'm looking down at them. I always have a pen and a yellow pad with me wherever I go because I want to catch those fireflies. Because I would say, aha, I'm worried about hockey this year. I'm worried about academics this year. And then I would have identified them on a piece of paper. And don't leave them up in your head. If you leave them up in your head, guess who's up there? The anxiety monster's up there. And he takes them and he makes them all crazy, right? Oh, yes, you should be worried about them. No, get them out of your head and look at them on paper, isolated, and you can quiet the noise down in your mind for a second. And there they are. So you're staring at them and you're saying, okay, in his case, I want to be a successful hockey player this year with 14 years of experience. So what should I do this summer before the season starts? I should be in the gym. What should I be doing? I should be going through my weightlifting, my roller exercise, my stretching exercise. I should be on the ice, keep my legs moving, work on my skills, have some fun. Don't make it a burden. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just like that. Boom, 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 boom. I identify, and these are the things I work on. So on the same piece of paper, I have to become a better hockey player over just simply the next 4 weeks. 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it is. And all of a sudden, we started to come up with a pretty simple plan that he could execute on. And off he went. Now, coupled with that, he just went into this other spot where he's trying to go to this postgraduate school for drama. They have a wonderful drama program, but you don't want to come in flat-footed on that because that's the academic thing you're worried about. So what do? Well, you take an intense class down in New York City, where you can do all this working on your hockey stuff because you get the plan set up with the gym, with the rink, etc. And now all of a sudden you're down at one of the best drama schools in the country for a teenager, and you're there studying, you're learning. So now if you're worried about the classes you're about to take, write down all the classes that you're taking, look at the books that you'll be reading from, email the teachers, be out in front of it, and you're working on it. You're not waiting for it to come so that it's a cold start. People stop waiting for it you're all waiting in this anxious place, and you're not taking the little micro steps that you could, that are logical, that are right out the door, right on the end of the laptop, right? Whatever it might be, they're action steps. And then what's cool about this is you're beginning, if you keep doing it consistently so that you get rid of like this anxious moment where nothing's happening, that this action step is beginning the steps towards mastery of anything. I know it takes a long time, but there's another cognitive distortion. You look at some savant, actor, hockey player, ballerina, biochemical engineer. You look at the end result and your cognitive distortion goes, oh my gosh, I could never do that. Why? You think they just woke up out of the womb and became successful? You don't think they identified, worked on, and slowly mastered the thing so that when you see them with the lights turned on, all of a sudden they're a master? What do you think they were born that way? Come on, stop being so naive. That feeds the anxiety monster. The anxiety monster's accelerant, the anxiety monster's steroid for quick growth are these cognitive distortions where you take all your logic after you've identified what the cause is and you accelerate into absurdity. Pretty simple. So here's the bonus section of the bonus section podcast. When you start working on the one thing that matters to you, you'll realize that the only failure, occurs when you stop working altogether. Let that sink in. Like, that great failure can only happen through your choice. You would have to let the anxiety monster win so big that you just stop doing anything. So unless you're mentally and physically completely incapacitated, then there's no such thing other than your choice to stop working even a little bit towards working on the thing that matters that's causing the anxiety if you don't work on it. See, you identify the thing you love and want to do, and then it's just a simple choice. Will I work on it? Will I won't? If I won't, I'm going to feed the anxiety monster, and the longer I don't, I'm going to feed it even more, and the anxiety monster is going to completely talk me out of it, and then really bad things can happen, and that's when you probably need to go get some medical attention to get a hard reset, and then get going on these behavior patterns, right? All right, let me summarize it this way. I love this subject. It's near and dear to my heart because I faced it, and I've spent a lifetime still facing it, dealing with it, understanding, and hopefully sharing with you some simple information that you can use to overcome it too. So in the bonus section episode today, we're talking about why aren't you facing the anxiety monster in your head? And the first point is, well, let's go down these points, right? Anxiety and fear that couples it, that's just the effect. There's a cause somewhere, but that's just the effect. You're just seeing the effect. Don't give it too much credit. It's an effect of something. Because that's the second point. It's not the fear or anxiety itself. It's what's causing it that matters to you. Right? And I know that's hard to break out of that when you first hear this message, like it was for my twin boys this week when I talked to them both separate times about it. It's hard to break out talking about the thing that, you're scared. Just go down deeper and see the cause. Now, the steps to do that, the work to do that would be to identify what's important. It might be one or two major things. So in my son Marty's case, it was being successful at hockey, being successful academically / dramatically. Right? That's his new lane. And then work on those things. And over time, you're mastering it. That's how you get away from this. See, because you stop feeding the anxiety monster when you just identify, work on, and continue to master. You're not feeding him anymore. And remember, the key tip here, the little extra tip here today is go learn about cognitive distortions, all or nothing thinking, exaggeration. That's when there's a little bit of fear and you say something silly, right, at the extreme. That's a cognitive distortion. Stop doing that. Learn about them. But the bonus section here today was when you start working on the one thing that matters to you, you realize that the only failure that really occurs is when you actually stop working on the thing that matters to you altogether. And that's a choice, your choice, not the anxiety monsters. All right, I'll summarize it by saying this. Fear and anxiety can be debilitating and demoralizing. Depressing. So when you suffer from them, you often create an anxiety monster. He feeds off of all that, and he lives in your head, and he grows bigger every time you feed him more and more and more, especially with cognitive distortion. So the way to eliminate the monster is to starve it to death. By doing this, 1, identifying the thing, the deeper thing that you're actually afraid of or worried about. 2, creating a simple plan to work on that thing that matters to you. 3, recognizing how good, steady improvement in working on the thing that matters to you feels. Oh, that's the food you need. And 4, realizing that the only thing the anxiety monster lives on is when it gets you to stop working altogether. That's what it wants. It wants to win. Don't let it. All right, remember, you can take immediate action to get moving towards your goals because we take all the notes from each episode and we post them for a short period of time at freethinkingtools.com, and we give you instant access. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen. We also post our content on YouTube, so don't forget to subscribe to the bonus section channel. We'd also appreciate it if you would join our mission of becoming people for others and share our content with other people like you so that they get the help that they need. Maybe you have kids, maybe you have friends, somebody you know, maybe it's you, whomever is doing the suffering and dealing with this anxiety monster. You might be the one. You might want to share this podcast just to provoke a conversation with somebody who can help you, right? But remember this, okay? I have to say this to all of you. Nobody's coming for you. Stop waiting for people to come for you, to help you. Work on it yourself. You can do it. You can come up with a better plan to improve your life and get towards your goals. I guarantee you. Been there, done that, taught that, and I know if you're hearing me today, I'm talking to you, you can do this. See you in the next episode.